How'd you break in?
Oh, here in Toronto, they used to run Maple Leaf Gardens, which is our version of Madison Square Garden in
Sure.
Canada, every 3 weeks. Uh,
Okay.
it started with Maple Leaf Wrestling, and then WWF came in and took over the territory, and Jack Tunny was still the president here, running the office here in Canada, and also president of WWE on television. And I used to go down every 3 weeks, take pictures, and a little hobby of mine, but I loved wrestling. So I got what was the equivalent of seasons tickets. I got the same seats every week, second row ringside.
Nice.
And if anybody who remembers Maple Leaf Gardens, they had that ramp that went from
Oh
the
yeah.
locker room to the
Classic.
ring level. And I was sitting right beside that.
Wow.
And I would sit there and I would take shots of the boys entering and exiting the ring and whatever else I can get. And I would come to the next show and sell them, because there was a place up here that used to double your prints for $1 when you used to have to actually develop your film.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I would sell them at the next show. And then a fellow by the name of Elio Zarlinga, who I didn't know at the time, was the guy who took the photos and made the program called Stranglehold, which was the program for Maple Leaf Gardens. And he came over and he says, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Good." He says, "Oh, you got some pictures there. Can I see them?" I said, "Sure, here you go." He says, "You selling them?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "How much are they?" I said, $2 a pop. He goes, "Can't do that." I said, "Why not?" So he tells me who he is, and he works for Jack Tunny, and he's going through the whole
Right.
copyright stuff and all that. I'm going, oh my goodness. And me, the thing that's bothering me the most is I'm thinking I'm going to lose my season's tickets.
Fan for the matches. Exactly.
Yeah,
Every wrestling fan would think that. I'm screwed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, I'll go to jail for the night, but don't take my tickets away, kind
Yeah.
of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But he goes, "You don't seem like a bad guy. Just don't do it right in front of the building, man. Just go down the block a little bit so they don't see you." And I said, "Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you." We ended up becoming actually friends. And he said, "I'll introduce you to Jack and see if we can get you on," because he took the pictures for the program.
Mhm.
You can be my assistant, come ringside and help me take pictures. I say, "Oh, that's cool." He introduced me to Jack, and Jack says, "Well, we don't need another photographer. We'll find something for the kid to do." And you're the errand boy. You do whatever needs to be done.
Sure.
They ask you to do this. They hand you the key. Jack would hand me the keys to his big blue Fleetwood Cadillac and say, "Here, go to the airport and pick up Andre and Timmy White." And I'm like, but I'm trying to stay cool. You know what I mean? You're trying to look,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
sir." Okay. But at the same time, you're going, "Oh my God, I'm going to go pick up John Doe the Giant and stuff." And then after about a year and a bit of doing that, uh, you get to know everybody. You get to know the agents. You get to know a lot of the talent. I became friends with quite a few of the talent, but Pat Patterson, who I got to be, you know, got to know really well, said to Jack one day, and I'm standing right there. This is the funny part. He goes, "Jack, we got the kid over here. He's running around doing all this stuff for us, but he's waiting during the show for us to get him to do stuff." He says, "Why don't we use him during the show? We'll make him a referee." And Jack says to Pat, he goes, "But Pat, do we want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat looks at him and says, "But Jack, he's in the locker room with the boys. He's kind of hanging out. He has kind of
Right.
an idea what's going on." So he told me to get the black sneakers, black pants, the blue shirt, and the black bow tie, and carry it with me. And that's what I did. I was just waiting for it. And what I didn't realize is I didn't think enough to ask questions.
Okay.
Like, what do I do? How do I do this? What is the job of a referee? Because, watching on television, you think you know
Right.
until you're thrown to the wolves. And then all of
Right.
a sudden it's like, I don't know a damn thing, you know?
When you first get in there, do they smarten you up and tell you the finish, or they you just count till someone's down for three?
No, here, what happened was, like I said, I was carrying my gear around all the time. He just told me to carry it with me, and I did. And Chief Jay Strongbow says to me one day, "Hey, Jimmy, you got your ref gear?" And I said, "Yes, I do, Chief." He goes, "Well, put it on. You're refing tonight. You're going to referee SD Jones versus the Red Demon, who is Jose Luis Rivera." And thankfully, I was friends with SD, and I walked up to him and I said, "SD, I got some good news and some bad news." He says, "What's the good news?" I said, "I'm refing your match tonight." He says, "What's the bad news?" I said, "I'm refing your match tonight. I have no idea what I'm doing." He said, "Well, just stay close to me and I'll talk you through it,"
Nice.
which he did. But of course, I look like a robot in there, afraid to move and you're stiff and all this. After the match, he sat me down. He says, "Here, okay, now that you've got your feet wet, now what you have to do is go to the veterans, go to those guys and talk to them, ask them, well, how do I do this? How is this done? Just learn and keep asking questions. Ask them to watch your matches and get feedback from that and all sorts of things. And that's exactly what I did. And I was fortunately a quick learner, but I'm like, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it, you're always learning.
Sure. What's Jack Tunny like?
He was cool. I know a lot of people, I don't know why. He's a promoter. So, a lot of the boys are going to be, yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? But I
Right.
never had a problem with him. He always treated me fairly. He was always nice to me. Um, you know, he, Man, he let me drive his Cadillac. How much better does it get than that? So, he always treated me really well. I always liked Jack.
There's a meme out there. It's Jack Tunney's face in the suit at the desk, and it's so true because it's perfect for my age. It's like when I saw this man on TV when I was a kid, you knew some serious shit was going down. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
If he was the
And
president, well, the president, but yeah,
right,
that's how I remember Jack.
right.
But was he still? How long was he running Canada for after that?
Well, for the office, I'm not. I can't give you an exact time frame of when he was out, but obviously up here, the Tunnies ran the territory, the Maple Leaf Wrestling territory for years. His uncle Frank is is the one I remember when I was like a young kid. Then Jack took over, who's a nephew, and Frank's actual son, Ed Tunney. So he left Jack in charge of the wrestling side. He left Ed in charge of the uh, the books. He looked after the books
Got
basically.
it.
So Jack looked after the wrestling. And Ed looked after the books. I don't know when they actually, because there was a switch, and then Jack was out and Carl DeMarco came in
Right.
looking after the Canadian office, and I don't remember the exact year that happened. Sorry.
How were the other refs when you came on the scene? Were the other refs eager to help you?
Yeah, up here, especially because it was mostly in Canada.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a few reps up here. John Bonello was one, Wayne Cashman, a few other guys, and then of course, yeah, somebody would always come up. Dave Hebner was a huge help. Timmy White was a huge help. Um, all very open to they just said, "Hey, you know what? This is how it's done. If you need any help, come to me." And I would always go to them. I just said, "If you get a chance, can you please watch my match?"
Right.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But they were
Did you,
they were really open and very giving.
where can people find you, Jimmy?
Well, you can find me on, of course, social media. I still call it Twitter at Jimmy Korderas, on Instagram at Real Jimmy Korderas. I do a podcast weekly with some other referees and former referees, Brian Hebner and Daniel Spencer, who's currently the head referee at TNA, called Reffing It Up. And I got to give a shout out to RJ, who's our producer, because if it wasn't for him, we'd be clueless. But anyways, what could we do? We only know how to count to three. And also here in Canada, I do a radio show on TSN Radio and iHeartRadio with Donnie De Silva, who's a well-known wrestling personality here in Canada, called Huge Pop Radio. And, we do a weekly radio show. It's an hour long on linear radio, but the website, hugepopradio.com, you can catch the full version because we do interviews with current and past superstars. And you can only play, because it is radio, you can only play like a 12-minute clip from it. And a lot of times these interviews will be an hour and a bit. And wrote a book a little while back called The Three Count: My Life in Stripes as a WWE referee. I think it's still available out there on Amazon or wherever you find books. And